fed up with our current political roster and are willing to take anybody over those now in power. Great part of it stems from our economy and the national debt. The government keeps spending and spending and digging us deeper into a hole. I think the straw that broke the camel's back was TARP. That's what started it. Remember TARP, the $700 billion to bail out the big banks? Well, whatever happened to that money? Did it ever get paid back? And is Congress now violating the law by using it for pet projects instead of paying back the Treasury like the law says they're supposed to? The man who knows is Republican Senator Gregg, one of the co-authors of the TARP legislation. Thanks for joining us, Senator. First of all, last time you and I talked, we were talking about the fact you were on the negotiating committee when the TARP rules were put together rather hurriedly back in 2008. You were concerned about all the proposals for the money to be sent off to all kinds of new projects. I call it a slush fund, if you will. Whatever happened to the money that got paid back? Has it all been paid back? And has Congress taken the money and sent it off to other places? And are they violating the law?
All the money that was paid back was supposed to go to reduce the deficit and the debt. That was language which I specifically put into the bill while we were negotiating it over that weekend, because I was very afraid that Congress would spend it and would use it as a slush fund. Now, so far, almost all the money that was put out to the major banks has been paid back with interest. Actually, the taxpayers have made some significant dollars here, almost $20 billion. The money that went out, however, to a couple of other initiatives which I questioned as being appropriate, such as GM, has not been paid back. To the extent that money has been paid back, it is going to debt reduction. There was an attempt by this administration to move the money into a number of other initiatives that they wanted to start up, walking around money for different ideas that they had. I strongly resisted that, and I think I embarrassed them, to tell you the truth, into sticking with the law as it's written.
Good. I'm glad to hear that, because I was concerned about all the different proposals. And we're now hearing from the community banks about some of the money that's going out to them regarding what is it, the jobs bill and others that are trying to get community banks, regional banks, local banks to lend money, that's coming from a different source, thank goodness. But still, they're worried. I've had a number of these bankers tell me they're worried about the strings being attached by Congress and how to run their bank. So they don't want the money.
They should be worried. I mean, it's pretty obvious that this Congress, dominated by this administration, has a very distinct social agenda which they tie to almost everything. And as a result, they're not interested in telling banks go out and make good loans to small businesses. They're interested in telling banks go out and make loans to certain interest groups which we deem to be underrepresented or inappropriately financed or getting bad credit or not getting enough credit. And so they should be very, very worried about the strings that will come with these dollars. This is not TARP money, as you mentioned. This is son of TARP. None of this money actually is going to go to deficit reduction when it's paid back, and it is an aggravation of the deficit when it's going out the door, because all of it is borrowed. And my view is it's a very bad public policy and something that we shouldn't have done, but unfortunately it was rammed through the Congress.
Well, you're going out the door. You've been in public life a very long time, whether it was local politics in New Hampshire or there in the United States Senate and in Congress. What do you make of as you're going out the door, people are saying, I will vote for anybody other than the current crowd that's in there?
Well, I think people are angry and frustrated, and they have a right to be. For the first time in our history as a nation, one generation is about to pass on to the next generation a country that is less prosperous, where our children will have a lower standard of living, where their opportunities for being successful will be less, and where we'll probably be less secure. And it's all a function of the fact that this generation, and specifically this Congress and this presidency, are radically increasing the size of the government, the deficit, and the debt, and basically spending the next generation into bankruptcy. And people are upset and they're angry about it, and they should be. And they don't differentiate. I can understand that, but there is a difference. There are a lot of us around here who basically have tried to slow this spending train down, have tried to slow down this radical expansion of the size of the government, the health care bill, the FinReg bill, the $200 billion of spending that's occurred just in the last few months in violation of PAYGO. But we've been unsuccessful because we haven't had the votes. The Democratic leadership of the Congress and the presidency want to turn this country into a social welfare state model along the lines of Europe. It's never worked in Europe. It won't work here. It's antithetical to the American way, which is to have to encourage individual entrepreneurship and people being willing to go out and take risks and create jobs, but they don't see that as the best template. They want us to follow the European model of social welfare state.
We've got less than half a minute. You were asked by the president to be the Commerce Secretary. You said yes, then you said no, forget it. Are you glad you changed your mind?
Well, it was a mistake for me to say yes. I've said that numerous times. It was my mistake. I was foolish. I should have looked in the mirror immediately and said, this isn't going to work.
Well,
but I didn't. And the president's been very gracious about it. I respect the fact that he handled it in a very gracious way.
We wish you all the best. Thank you, Senator Judd Gregg.
Thank you.